Hi, everybody. This is Lars Light from the Somm Journal.
And Jillian Balance with Treasury Wine Estates. Happy Monday, everyone.
Happy Monday. We're here to welcome you back to Somm Sessions. And Mondays, you know, Jillian and I were just talking about how Mondays can be such a bear. I was born on a Monday, and I guess I must have had a rough time because Mondays have always given me a hard time. But if you're going to have a Monday, make it a Viognier day. That definitely helps things out a little bit.
Absolutely. And, you know, I still find it very odd. I'm sure that a lot of sommeliers that are participating today would agree with me that this grape is still not very well known. And I'm always shocked at how hard it is to pronounce for people. I think it's one of the most mispronounced varieties out there. But let's not even talk about Italy. So that's why we have the more kind of phonetic spelling. Viognier.
Viognier. Yay!
Because we love it. It's a darling varietal amongst sommeliers. You know, the really fantastic expressions are hard to come by. And so that's the whole point of today, because even though the Stag's Leap Winery Viognier, to me, is stylistically juxtaposed to what we would think of for California Viognier. But that just makes it all the more interesting. And for the second half of the presentation, we will have Christophe Paubert, our beloved winemaker at Stag's Leap Winery. Yeah, come on and talk us through some of those things that you can't really Google about this variety, and why it's so, you know, capricious and hard to grow and hard to make and etc. So exciting session today. I hope everybody has their Viognier chilled, opened, and in the glass, because it is Monday. And for those of you on-premise folks, you know, you made it through inventory on Friday, probably had a really busy weekend. Maybe this is your day off. This is your time to chill and enjoy your Monday. Thank you for attending the session. And we will kick it off, I think, with a little bit of just kind of the origins of this variety and some of the unique features about it.
Absolutely. And I just want to remind everybody that there are some incentives provided by the SommFoundation. You've got pay attention, because at the end, we're going to give you the guidelines for the quiz that's going to be following this, and what these great prizes, everybody's favorite prize, cash, that you can apply for. But so we'll jump right into it and talk about origins. So Viognier, for everything that it's gone through, and as we're saying, it's maybe not as well known as we would have thought, Jillian. It's an ancient varietal. It's been around forever. It's kind of had a little bit of a Rodney Dangerfield experience in its early days. Never really got a lot of respect. It's historically grown in the northern Rhone. We're familiar with that. But it goes way back to the Roman Empire. Of course, a lot of our wine traditions and grape varieties were spread with the spread of the Roman empires. Those soldiers were good for something, bringing grapevines wherever they went. They say the Emperor Probus imported Viognier into Condrieu from Dalmatia back around the 3rd century to replace vineyards that the previous emperor had destroyed. Supposedly, what I've read is that it was actually hijacked. The vines were on the way to Beaujolais, and they were hijacked by a band of bandits in the Rhone, and they ended up staying there. I don't know, urban legend or not.
Wow.
The 2,000-year-old man is not here to tell us, but we'll find out. So when the Romans got kind of kicked out of Gaul, the grapes kind of floundered. They just stayed there, very sad, for a couple of centuries. They were just completely uncultivated. So again, that Rodney Dangerfield aspect going on there. And then finally it started to get a little bit of rebirth. And when the Pope came in, again, that Italian influence, the Pope came into Châteauneuf-du-Pape in Avignon and started using Viognier a little bit there. And gradually in the 20th century, really not until the 1990s, did it really start to catch on a little bit more. It risked going extinct. Viognier almost disappeared Condro wasn't very extremely well known, and whatnot. Now, speaking about Condro, it's a appellation that I wasn't terribly familiar with, Jillian, but I know we were speaking. You were in Dallas at the advanced Somm exams with the Court of Master Sommeliers this last week, and I know you had a Condro tasting. So tell me a little bit about that. How did that go? What were some of your aha moments, your discoveries, your reinforcement of what you already knew, and discoveries of something new?
Well, I think what was really great and special about tasting this wine with 150 certified sommeliers was there were many that hadn't really tried this wine too many times. I think, because the appellation is so small, it's, right. You don't see 20 Condrieux on a wine list anywhere.
You're lucky if you see one.
Very few. And, I think that what's so wonderful about the varietal itself is really the intense perfume. Just really high in terpenes and wonderful aromatics. It is a little bit richer than Chardonnay. It has naturally pretty low acidity and capable of pretty high sugar levels. So easy to mess that up, if you will, in the vineyard. And I think, we tried the Domaine Viognier, which uses a little bit of oak and some malolactic fermentation. It was a 2017, so it was definitely a very rich, expressive, intense version of the wine.
That's cool. We're going to, we were just speaking before, we're going to talk more about the variety itself, but it's nice to see that it is starting to catch back on. It's being planted all over the world now. It's obviously in France. Washington has done well with it. California, Virginia considers it one of their signature varieties, which is very cool. They're doing some fun things with it in South Africa. And of course, Australia, they can grow anything in Australia, right? It's done very well. And yet it still surprises me that there are 40,000 acres worldwide, 20,000 of them are still in France. Half of it is still grown in France for everything we're talking about of where it's growing around the world. But it's still got a long way to grow in terms of becoming an international traveler. I mean, you've got more acreage in Italy of Viognier than you do in California. That blows my mind. I suspect it's one of those little spice box varieties that the Italians like to blend into some of the indigenous varieties to perk them up a little bit, give it a little bit of more aromatic expression.
Yeah, certainly in warmer areas, this in warmer growing regions, this wine retains its beautiful characteristics better than many varietals. So yeah, we like to think of this as a reluctant traveler, unlike Chardonnay and Cabernet Sauvignon, which are planted extensively around the world and tend to adapt a little bit better. I kind of think of this, the Viognier that's made it to Australia or South Africa is probably someone's love of Rhone varietals and someone's, unique passion for Viognier itself. Like, I don't think people are excited to jump on the Viognier bandwagon. But that's, that's one of the things that makes it special as well, right?
Absolutely. I mean, listen, winemakers can be a little masochistic too. If it was just up to how easy a grape varietal was to plant, we wouldn't have Pinot Noir grown anywhere except for a handful of places, right? Right. Exactly. All right. So why don't we talk about where it obviously does very well, Jillian? Talk to us about Viognier in France.
Sure. And I mean, you did a great job of kind of speaking to the origins, the incredible history, Pliny the Elder writing about this varietal, dating very far back. And it's interesting that it almost went extinct, right? In the 60s and 70s, I think I took some notes here. In 1995, there were only 80 hectares in existence.
Wow.
So that's a definite indicator that from what Yves Quiron has explained to me about this is younger generations, and you can see how steep those terraces are. Those are the original like Roman terraces that were built to plant vineyards on, and they're held up by these stone walls. There's they're always facing issues with erosion, et cetera. But being that these vines are so hard to work, I think that people that inherited them in the Condrieu appellation were like, no thanks. I want to do something else. So it really wasn't until the 80s, producers like Yves Quiron and Francois Villard started to really kind of resurrect these vineyards. And thank goodness that they did, because that's how it actually made it over to the United States, was some of these Rhone Rangers here in the U.S. going over and being just astounded by the virtues of this wonderful varietal. So, it's been Condrieu was, the AOC was created in 1940. I think Chateau Grier, which is a wee 3.08 hectares, just a little south of that area, actually preceded the AOC of Condrieu by just a couple of years. And so these two really are, where the grape variety originates. You're welcome, Lars. Fruit Loops in a glass. Happy Monday. In case you missed your breakfast cereal. So delightful. Exactly. And so by 2011, we see the plantings are rising. There was also, the expansion and the creation in 2009 of the Collines Rodanienne, which enables some of those key producers in Condrieu to kind of spread out a little bit and produce varietal Viognier, because of course it's outside of the Condrieu appellation. And so, what we see here, again, these very steep, narrow granite terraces with a little bit of what they call, you can see the arzelle, the sandy topsoil that they say kind of gives the Condrieu its really beautiful aromatic expression. Of course, the Languedoc produces quite a bit of Viognier as well. It's significantly warmer, so blended into different white wine blends as they're able to do. Also, historically, we have seen small percentages of Viognier make it into the blend with Côte Rôtie. Because the appellations are so close together, they say historically that some of the grapes were just picked together. Before anybody knew that there was Syrah and Viognier going into the same vat. The only issue really with adding the Viognier is because Viognier ripens so much earlier, and you can't add the base wine of Viognier to Syrah. You have to co-ferment. So that, makes it a little difficult, I think, for producers to add too much. And you don't want to. A little bit of Viognier goes a very long way, kind of lifts the intense meatiness of Syrah, and also, from what I understand, helps to stabilize color as well.
I was fascinated by that factor, that what they call co-pigmentation helps fix the color in the Syrah. You wouldn't think Syrah would have any problems, need any help with its color, but evidently the Viognier plays an important role in fixing the color there.
Right, exactly. I just can't stress enough that the steep vineyards, the sandy topsoils, the granitic soils underneath, like these vines really do struggle. And I think that's what gives them their unique characteristics, especially coming from this tiny appellation.
I got to tell you, so many times we look at pictures of wine country and it's just breathtakingly beautiful. These vines and these soils, I'm sorry, they look miserable. And, I'm a big believer in that vines really, you don't really you don't hear much about vines growing in fertile soils. Yeah, they do. You make great grapes, but to make a real good quality wine, the vines don't thrive, they survive. They eke out what they can, and they're real survivor vines. Every mother knows that you have to suffer to bear good fruit, and the vine's reaching deep down and suffering. It's going to throw less fruit, right? Because that's the nature of the vine. That is nature itself, is to want to reproduce. And if it can't reproduce in quantity, then it's going to make sure that it can reproduce in quality and throw out a lot of character to the lesser fruit that it's able to grow, right?
Great point. And I do think that Viognier is, certainly a lot of the Condrieu producers obviously shoot for lower yields, somewhere around
Sometimes
30
they don't have a choice either.
Yeah. And if anybody that's on today sat in last week for Andrea's awesome seminar on minerality, we really did learn a lot about what you're speaking to is the struggle of the vine.
It's real.
Yeah. I mean, does it carry trace minerals from the soil into the wine? Still remains to be seen, but those rocky, really vineyards like this are kind of what give these wines a sense of place. Very site driven. So, well, let's talk about Viognier in California.
Awesome.
Right? Look at these luminaries up here. John Albin in Edna Valley, Josh Jensen, who founded Calera in Mount Harlan. Certainly that was one of the first California Viogniers that I tried. Joseph Phelps, if anybody's been in the business for a long time like I have, remember the Mistral wines that he named after the famous Mistral winds that blow through the Rhone Valley, literally keeping it disease and pest free. Had a really nice line of Viognier and Rhone blends. So, and this happened in the late 1980s. Some of it was mistaken for Roussanne. So definitely finding out and isolating that specific clone of Viognier was key. So only about 80 acres existed worldwide in 1985 when John Albin propagated 32 vines, brought cuttings from the Rhone Valley to California. Again, young traveling winemaker falls in love with the wines of the Rhone Valley and wants to emulate those here in the United States, and there was no plant material to do so. So how he got those cuttings back, we don't know. Where they came from.
Nobody wants to know.
And, today, obviously, passionate sommeliers. We've championed the early producers of Viognier, of this great varietal. And because of its ability to, either be drunk on its own or pair well with food, in my opinion, especially the California versions. Yeah. We've helped to kind of establish this reputation, and now we have about 3,000 acres planted, which is not very much, but who knows? Will that increase over time? One can only say.
Well, thank God for those Rhone Rangers, though, for getting it started.
Right.
And
let's talk a little bit about the characteristics, right?
Yeah. It had to take some courage for them to plant it because, I compared it earlier to the experience that it had from the Middle Ages up until the 1990s as sort of being a Rodney Dangerfield. And you can kind of understand a little bit why it didn't get a ton of respect, because it's a little bit of a Goldilocks, too. It's a high-maintenance grape variety. It buds early. It's susceptible to frosts and diseases and other things. It doesn't want the climate too warm, but it doesn't want it too cold. It's got to be just right. So you've got to be very patient with it as a winemaker, from what I understand. It is drought resistant, and that's a good thing. It does have a lot of phenolic compounds. It seems to me like a white grape that almost behaves like a red in many ways. And it is, oddly enough, I'm shocked to see that it's a genetic cousin of Nebbiolo. I've also heard it compared to Fresia, which is a high acid variety. So that surprises me, that because Viognier is known to be lower in acids and a little bit higher in sugars. So obviously it's got a variety of a broad spectrum of different styles it can be made in, but those become down to winemaker's choice, because it's not as flexible as, say, a Chardonnay. If you're going to make a decision to put it in some oak barrel, you're going to lose out a little bit on some of the fruit characteristics. But that's my understanding of it. But we actually have somebody who has a heck of a lot more experience than I do. Christophe, welcome. Glad to have you here to join us. And tell me, if what we're saying here is that bear some sense? Are we right on track about our description of Viognier, or are we a little off? I think Christophe may be muted.
Uh-oh. Christophe, turn your mic on. Well, while he's working on the sound, we always love, as sommeliers that spend the better part of their careers having to blind taste and guess what varietals are. We love the wines that are high in these terpenes, these high terpene grapes like Viognier, like Gewürztraminer, Muscat, Torrontés, like these, you kind of hope to get one of these in a blind tasting because they stick out, right? Amongst wines that can often be confused and that are a little more neutral in terms of their aromatic expression. So anyway, Christophe, are you on?
Yeah, but nobody hears me.
Yeah, now we
hear
do.
You.
Oh, okay. I didn't do anything different.
You're back.
You must have done something different.
Yeah, who knows? Technology. So Viognier, it's a fun variety. I had never made any Viognier before joining Stag's Leap, so I had to learn on the fly and do what I thought would be the best. And I agree, tannins can be complicated to manage. So the thing is, we try to limit, it's already and peaked, we try to limit macerations, and because tannins can be, and we manage also the press fraction. The more you press, the more you extract, which makes sense. So we are very soft in extraction. We don't try to extract that much of the juice because we will get lots of tannins from the skin. So we try to avoid that at the maximum. And it's a very fun grape in following the maturity among everything. We go several times to each blocks to decide when to pick. And at the beginning, the Viognier, you are talking about sometimes can be a different style. And of course, when you pick has a big influence on that. And at the beginning, it tastes acid and water. It is not flavorful. It's pretty boring. And little by little, you go back, and you can see randomly in each cluster and different cluster, you can test a berry, and the berry tastes a little like apricot. And even there is when you have very ripe apricot, you have some fibers in the apricot, and you can even see that developing in the pulp of the Viognier, and you can see also it becomes a bit less turgid, is a bit more flabby. And that's the thing, if you wait a lot of time, all of the berries are going to be like that, very flavorful and strong, but you are going to lose acidity, and it is going to become very oily, very floral, a bit in your face, very jammy, apricot jam. So usually I try because I don't have a cursor to exactly know what is the final number, but I pick when I have we have around 30% of the berries tasting like that. So this way I have this more elegant expression of the Viognier. It still have this stone fruit, actually more white peach than apricot. And it is floral, but not too much. And I still have a very nice natural acidity. So that, and also we are talking about tannins. The more you wait, the more tannins accumulate in the skin also. So if you pick a bit earlier, you can manage that a bit in an easy way. So that's a very fun variety to follow the maturity and to decide when to pick.
I definitely get a lot of that white peach characteristic on this wine. Lars, I don't know if you agree with me.
I definitely agree. I also get a little tiny bit of cantaloupe melon.
Cantaloupe.
Right. Yeah.
On the texture is kind of like pear skin to me also. Yeah. And really beautiful. Wonderful aromatics.
Talking about acidity.
What's that?
Sorry. Go ahead. Talking about acidity is something that is very important also where it is growing. because the Napa Valley is not uniform in terms of climate. And if you go to the south, where these two vineyards are close to, you are close to San Pablo Bay, and it is more influenced by the cold water, the morning fog. And if you go north to Calistoga, of course, the weather is very different, much more hot and less fog over there. So the two vineyards we use for this Viognier, we own both of them. One is in Carneros in our Stanley Ranch, and the other one is on Oaknoll, a bit less known appellation, but I really like this appellation, even for red and white. And it is the first appellation north of the town of Napa. So all of that varies to 2,000 appellation of the valley, and that influences a lot aromatic expression, because the fruit that doesn't get too warm develop different aromas also than when it is hit by sun, and the number of hours it is on hot weather, and the morning fog also are helping a lot protecting the fruit. I come from Bordeaux, and usually the fog are in winter or but here the fog are in summer because of the temperature difference between the San Pablo Bay and the air coming from the land. So it's a very protective way to help with freshness and acidity.
Now, Christophe, is it hard? Thank you for speaking to the vineyard sourcing, which was my next question. But also, can you speak a little bit to the soil types at both of those sites, and if they are suitable to this variety? Because I've read, they don't like very heavy soil. The Viognier doesn't like the heavier clay base soils, and so if you could speak a little bit to that.
Yeah, there is a bit. It's difficult to make a good one without any clay. So clay is what retains humidity, and we need that nowadays, and retains also nutrients. And clay also is interesting because it releases nutrients very slowly. So in this two vineyard, there is some clay, but it's well drained also, and they are not too heavy soil. There is a lot of sand it's the mix with gravel also. All of that makes that's the thing. You can't put a terroir or soil in equation. Petrus or Chateau d'Yquem, both of them, you bring the soil analysis to a specialist. They're going to tell you, no, I never plant any vineyard there. So there is something fun between the soil, the rootstock, the variety, and the climate that works. And and also I have to say that whites are a bit more forgiving than reds for soil also, because you don't have these tannins and the polyphenols in the equation, or very little for the Viognier. So it works. It's I think what this vineyard deliver every year, and that's the thing also, because we're in the south, there is more influence of buffering effect, I would say, of San Pablo Bay. It is very consistent. I think the Viognier has been very consistent through the year. And the earlier you pick a wine, the less it is influenced by heavy and temperature and all of that. So the Viognier and Chardonnay that are located in this appellation have been very consistent in quality.
Are there a lot of different clonal selections of Viognier? Do we have a mix at Stanley Ranch and the Big Ranch Vineyard in Oaknoll District, or?
I honestly, I am a funny person about clones. It works or it doesn't. I am not that picky. I'm not, it is. We have one clone in. I don't even know the name of the clone. I am going to be very honest. And but you see, the result is really good. So I don't think. And the more the variety, or the less his variety is present anywhere, the less choice you have of clones. So there is many clones of Cabernet. I think the Cabernet has the most clones you can find. But Viognier or other varieties are a bit less planted everywhere in the world. Are less studies about them. And actually, I love what we call massal selection, when actually it is something, the mix, and that is more or less, that makes sense, is already blended in a certain way, and the wine of massal selections are very interesting.
So we have a question from the chat, which is, in your opinion, what is the ageability of this 2019 Viognier? I tend to think of them as being good to drink within the first 3 to 5 years, but I'd love to hear your thoughts as well.
Yes, I agree. It's because there is a beauty of young Viognier showing these floral aromas, and it is going to go away a bit with time. I have opened some old Viogniers. They were still very fresh, but I had lost a bit this particular, really focused variety expression. But they were still very vibrant color and very vibrant aromas, more on the tea, dry herbs, but I had lost a bit the floral with the years. So I agree, but there is no risk. They are not going to go wrong. But I think when they are young, you have this particular beauty of pure varietal expression. You may lose a bit with time.
Before we dive into like kind of some specifics on winemaking, because I have a lot of questions. I know I'm not going to have time to ask you all of them, but which is a good thing. You know, when I can wake up at 8 a.m. and come up with 20 things that I want to ask Christophe about Viognier, that's pretty good, especially on a Monday. But just in your opinion, why do you think the plantings remain so low for this varietal? Is it lack of demand of the consumer, or is it that so capricious that people don't really take chances on this variety? I'm talking about here in California, just in your opinion.
My opinion is usually people sell what they are selling easily. And I think there is some work still to do with introducing Viognier to a wider public. And I think it's not even, for me, it's not an easy name to say, Viognier. It's not something easy. You know, lots of things are participating in it, but the demand is still a bit low. So I think what we produce in the region matches the demand. But I would love that to grow because, yeah, it's a beautiful variety and it is very unique. And has lots of attributes, this freshness. It is a beautiful wine. I love it as for itself, by itself, but it's a perfect perfect wine for Asian food. And I think we consume a lot of Asian food. Lots of people like that with a bit of spice. That's a perfect pairing. So I think there is still work to put this variety in the spotlight, and I hope a bright future. And but yeah, it's the demand is still not still confidential a bit.
Lars, do you have any questions for Christophe? I have a couple more, but you know, I didn't know if you had any to.
You know, I just, if you don't mind, I want to go back for a second to the idea of aging it, and because it has, you mentioned that it has a little bit more tannin than a typical white wine. Do the tannins tend to come out a little bit more and help preserve it? Does the acidity change as the wine ages?
No, so both of them are stable. Normally, there is not enough tannins like in red. Sometimes the red tannins, they precipitate, they flocculate at the bottom. It's why you have sediment. It's not going to happen. Even if there is some more tannins in the Viognier than another variety, we try as a winemaker, as I explained, to press less to avoid them. So still there is not a lot compared to a red wine. And the acidity through the year, our job is to make the acidity because if you don't, we put the wine cold. I don't know if you know that to prevent to precipitate later on. So the acidity is pretty stable. It should be not moving at all during the year. So, but the other thing also, acidity is whatever it's a red or white wine. If you have a higher acidity, is going to help the wine to age a bit longer. So it's why this wine, I told you, I opened some 7-8 years old. The hue was still very, very clear and the wine very fresh, so it wasn't going away. Again, what was going away a bit was the uniqueness of the varietal when they are young, but the wine were very, very fresh still.
Nice.
Is it typical for young Viognier like this? Because I'm seeing a little bit in the hue, like a straw yellow, but I'm seeing some greenish, kind of silverish tinges.
I would say yes. Yeah, I would say it's typical, and it's why I was even all vintages. I would say even at the same age, even our Chardonnay is going to become a bit more yellow than the Viognier does. So it was very consistent in this color. Color doesn't mean quality, yeah, but it was interesting because color means also slow. When the color doesn't evolve quickly, that means the evolution and the aging is pretty slow.
Okay, so I'm going to throw out all of my white wine making terminology and let you speak to whether there's malolactic fermentation, any kind of lees aging, what gives this kind of the characters that you're looking for, the richness. Is there any maceration, or do you just press straight off the skins? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, pressed right away because, again, to avoid any maceration, the quicker the better. It is picked by hand at night, so the temperature also it's cold because even in summer our nights are like 55 degrees, so the juice cooler also means less extraction. Any chemical reaction is quicker with temperature, so less temperature means less maceration. It's pressed right away. Again, managing the press fraction differently to avoid tannins. We rack off lees, and we try to have the very low amount of lees, again, because lees can bring tannins. And we put the juice in used barrel, really not only 1 or 2 years, they are 6, 7, 8 years old, dedicated to the Viognier, because we don't want any oak influence in this wine. A few years ago, I tried to ferment a few barrels in stainless steel. I thought it would be even fresher. Actually, the wine was very close and a bit reductive. Because even if the barrels are old, there is a little bit of oxygen going through the staves, and that helps the Viognier to be open. And the Viognier is a bit prone to reduction. So that it was a trial, didn't work very well. We came back 100% used oak. And it is no malolactic because I don't know people who do malolactic of Viognier. I have beautiful acidity. I will lose acidity. I haven't tried, but I may lose some aromatic freshness also. I will gain even more oiliness, which is not what is missing in this wine. And among all the wines, we just bottled in March, mid-March, the Viognier 2021 with a rosé. So there is we steer the lees, but it's not to extract from the lees, just to, again, avoid any reduction, because that's not belonging to the expression of the fruit. And it's a very quick turnout. So if you want to have autolysis of the yeast, it takes much more time, 8-10 months before the lees open, the yeast open. So this wine is really driven by a very quick, purity, expressive way to make the winemaking focus on that is really quick and to focus on showing the fruit.
Love it. Really delicious. Christophe, you've been with Stag's Leap Winery since 2009, correct?
It is right.
And obviously Viognier was already a part of the program.
Yes.
Was the sourcing similar, or did you change that when you came on board?
So the sourcing was, we had some at the Stanley Ranch and some with a grower close to Ocknall Cross. The grower, we planted some on Big Red Road, which is really good. So now we have these two vineyards. So the location of the vineyard, one is still the same. The other one is very close to what it was in the past. And so it's why I think this Viognier has been very consistent in style through the years.
Fantastic. Well, so for all of you participants out there, if you make your way to Napa Valley anytime soon, this property is a must-see. It's absolutely stunningly beautiful. It's where Christophe, this is your longest winemaking tenure of anything in your career, right?
Oh yeah, by far.
I mean, obviously this place is so special and unique that Christophe, it's home to him. He's very passionate about the Stags Leap District. And of course, the winery is one of the most historic properties here today, where you can still taste wine at the Manor House, which was built in 1893. Very cool, unique opportunity for those of you coming to Napa Valley. And I think that if this Viognier doesn't get you there, and our stunning vineyards in the Stags Leap District doesn't, I don't know what will.
So sometimes I say something. I say I put myself in danger. I tell people, if you like the Viognier, you should like everything we make.
It's so true.
That's the thing. There is nothing similar between a Viognier or Cabernet or Petit Sirah or Merlot, but the style of this Viognier set up the style of everything we make. So because usually we start with this wine to any testing, it's why I say that.
Absolutely. And I feel like a lot of California Viognier that grows in warmer climates gets to be that really candied, jammy style that's not very refreshing. And this has a refreshing acidity that just makes it, like you said, so great with Asian cuisine. I've worked with a lot of chefs doing Stags Leap Winery dinners in the past, where you do a little bit of red curry with some grilled prawns, or anything like raw seafood that has some mango or any real fruit driven element to it.
It
just
works
beautiful.
very well. I heard. I haven't tried it. I heard it works very well with the turkey for Thanksgiving.
Turkey
with white meat.
Okay. Yeah, I know.
I know.
French don't love turkey. I used to work with a chef in Santa Barbara at Bacara Resort, and he hated Thanksgiving. I don't want to make turkey. But if you think about all the
accoutrements, trying to cook the whole bird at once.
If you think about the stuffing and the gravy and all those things, yes, very, very
even with a good farm raised chicken with white meat, it works pretty well. It's really nice.
Yeah, or like a nice roast pork tenderloin with some kind of fruit chutney. But very delicious wine, Christophe. Thank you so much for being here. I could talk to you all day. I always learn something new. I always think that I know something, and then I listen to you and I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. Or I thought something was completely different. So you're always bringing light and knowledge and passion to every topic as a wonderful winemaker. So thank you for making this session so spectacular today.
Thank you very much. I have the easy part of the job, making wine. Selling wine is much more complicated. So I have to say, I don't have any competition in the cellar when I make wine. I have my crew. Selling wine is very complicated. So thank you, everybody.
It is a little complicated.
Thank you, Chris.
And
brilliant,
all of these participants today hopefully will continue to support and sell this wine if they've had it, and make it a staple on their wine lists. I know, Stags Leap Winery is pretty popular for restaurant locations, and Christophe is getting out into the market. He's going to start traveling in the U.S. here late spring. So maybe he's going to come to a town near you for an event. So make sure you attend. I'm sure he would love to meet you all.
Thank you, everybody. Right. Have a good day.
Somm session checklist, Lars.
Christophe, I have one more question for Christophe before you go.
Oh yeah.
And you might have mentioned it, but I might have been too busy concentrating on the beautiful wine at that point and thinking about it even with Indian cuisine. But the age of the vines in these two vineyards.
That's a good question. The Ocknall is around 7 years, and Stanley was there when I arrived. So I think the Stanley Ranch is around 20 years now.
Okay, so a nice blend of older vines and younger vines.
Yeah, and again, white, it is a little bit less crucial for white wine than it can be for red wine.
Right.
But these two locations are unbelievable. On the Ocknall, we have planted also some Petit Sirah that are some of the most incredible Petit Sirah I have ever seen. So yeah, that's a very nice location for red growing. Yeah.
Fantastic. Wonderful stuff. All right. Thank you very much, Christoph and
Thank you.
and
Bye-bye.
Damien.